Hola amigos, and welcome back to another episode of La Vida Verde podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Human, here at Finca Vida Verde, and my guest today is Daniela Luján. Daniela is a regenerative community architect. She is a professor of architecture, a dancer, and she is a proud Mexicana, and we are going to get into it today. It's going to be a great conversation. I hope you enjoy. Daniela Luján, welcome to La Vida Verde podcast.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yes, I wanted to have you because, it's good. I feel like I like to have a lot of different representation in the community. You're an Allegrian.
Yeah.
You're living in Ecovilla.
Yeah.
You're a Latina woman.
Sí.
I think you're our first Mexican. Oh no, we had Alex. We had the
Cacao.
cacao Alex Corrales, the chef Alex.
Yeah,
So
the
you're
first
the
Mexican.
first-
Second Mexican.
First Mexicana.
True.
So, you're also helping. You've been helping me with some Finca Vida Verde stuff. Danielle's an amazing architect, which we'll talk about, but she's been helping me kind of like with some of our future design plans. So thank you.
Thanks.
Let's start with a little interview. Where are you? You're originally from Mexico. What part of Mexico?
I was born in Mexico City
Uh-huh.
and city, como mexicana.
Uh-huh.
En Ciudad de México.
City.
I grew up in Morelia, which is another city, and then I came back to study to Mexico City and stayed there for 14 years before coming here to Costa Rica.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And I met your parents. I think your dad is an architect as well.
Yeah, both
Both your parents are architects.
of my parents. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So you're like
And uncles, and I have many architects in the family.
And so that inspired obviously your path.
Yeah, I grew up in construction sites. I used to play in my parents' office to be an architect and to sign and like design things. So it was always in me.
I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
I don't have that. Like my mom, well, I guess my mom like is a secretary or like an assistant. So I'm pretty good with like that kind of stuff, but I never was like, I want to do this for a living or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my dad used to teach me how to draw in perspective when I was a kid.
That's awesome.
So
Wow.
I always was attracted to
Mhm.
it. Yeah.
And is your family like indigenous Mexican or what's your, your roots?
I would say that we have
Half and half.
roots of indigenous,
Uh-huh.
but I mean, there in my family, we never had that connection with indigenous people directly because of all the history. We're mixed with Spanish
Right.
people. So in my thank you.
Just swat the.
Yeah,
This is the jungle. That's
mosquito.
what happens.
So in my roots, I have half genes from Spanish, Portugal, and half from
Portuguese.
Mexico.
Uh-huh.
But it's mainly because of the conquest,
Conquistadors.
la conquista.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The conquest.
the conquest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mexico, Costa Rica used to be part of Mexico. Mexico was like, or no, it was the Guatemala, no?
Well, actually, that's funny. I don't know about that. I know that part of the U.S. used to be part of Mexico, but not
No, well,
Guatemala.
U.S. used to be part of Mexico, but all in the early days, like this was like the I think it was called the something of Guatemala, and it included Mexico, it included Costa Rica, and eventually Mexico fought for independence, and then other countries started gaining their independence, and Costa Rica became free, but it was obviously all Spanish
It was
ruled.
Yeah, it was all Spanish ruled,
Yeah.
and the same holidays that we have there, and they arrived here also. Like they were once
Totally.
we got liberated from the Spanish people. People here also got liberated.
Yeah,
free.
well, Costa Rica, yeah, but Mexico had to fight for their liberation, and Costa Rica was, here you go, you guys are free, no longer part of our thing.
Sure.
Have at it. So cool, and you you were like architecture, was that like always from the beginning, like I'm gonna do that? Obviously you grew up doing it, but like were you always like, yeah, I'm gonna follow in this path?
Um, More or less.
Yeah.
At some point, I'm not doing anything related to that because my parents had
Uh-huh.
so much influence. Like they were talking always about architecture. So at some point, I had resistance. But then I just accepted that that was my path. And also once I learned about the pollution that this industry causes, that was when everything aligned for me. It was like a click in me of, okay, this is why I'm here. And this is why I'm studying architecture, is kind of to influence that change from the inside out.
Right. And you went full like academic. You were like in school, studied in school, became a professor, right? You're like, so you.
Well, first, when I went out of college, I started working for firms, always working for sustainability projects, sustainable projects, and different firms that had that alignment with regeneration, with sustainability.
Oh, so you jumped in, you actually went into the field before you came back to teach.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Also, I went to Italy to do a master. And when I came back, I couldn't apply that directly into the field because Mexico wasn't prepared for that, or the market wasn't prepared for that. So I went into the lead certification field a little bit, and then I realized that what I really wanted to study was regenerative development, and that's what I did.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I guess we could also talk about like, what does it even mean to be like regenerative architecture? Like, what does that even mean? Like, what does that entail? What's the difference between? No, it's not a mosquito. It's actually a little like just a little. It's not a biter. It's just annoying. So it just keeps swatting it away. What does it mean to like? Why is regenerative architecture different than other architecture, for instance? Like, what's the difference?
Well, what regenerative development means or wants to, I think I'm gonna say that again.
Go for it. It's gonna give.
So what regenerative development aims to do is to start within. So the first line of work is oneself. So that's different from sustainability or the sustainability approach in architecture because when we build a house, it has certain impact. And what we're aiming to do with sustainability is to reduce that impact as much as possible. So we already have certain problems. For instance, we already go to the bathroom and use water, which is fresh water. And we're trying to solve that problem, compensate it with sustainable solutions.
Like lower water usage, or in my case, we use zero water for our pooping. We go straight into the earth.
Which is great. That's the natural way, right? But there's so many habits that we haven't questioned, and that's what regenerative development tries to do, to start by questioning why we do the things that we do. Why do we even want a house? Like we go that deep in like why do I even want to build?
And why not just have a hammock underneath a tree?
Yeah, right. So it's just it goes deep into asking questions to create architecture from a place of inner knowing. Instead of just repeating patterns. Yeah.
That's profound too. Yeah. Really. It's like, it seems so basic too. It's like on one level, it's so basic. It's like, if you think about it, it's like, yeah, just asking like, why am I going to the bathroom in water? Or to like, why, like, it seems so basic, but at the same time, it's like, how many people actually ask this question? It's not being asked in society because that's what everyone just does. They go to the toilet, and it's a toilet. And why is it a toilet? It's just
Yeah.
So okay, got it.
And we have also attached that image of architecture to our progress and our level and our economical class. Is that a way to say it?
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
we have that linked. So if we have a great house with this beautiful design,
Right.
that means power. And that's been
Right.
like in history that has
Castles
always been
and
there. Yeah.
Castles and estates. Yeah. If you've got money, you need to have a big house.
Yeah, and it's something that you can't say you're powerful to the world if you don't have a big architecture piece that supports that like idea for others, right? Like the guy that has these incredible luxurious houses, oh, he must be powerful, right? So we have these associations.
Yeah, and it's funny if you check with people, like so usually half and half. Like, yeah, there's some really wealthy people that have nice houses. There's also some people that are like trying very hard to keep up that lifestyle so they can afford to have such a big house, and really they can't have sometimes. Like, so yeah, it's an interesting it's a perception thing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and what about materials? Like when I think of when regenerative, I guess I hadn't thought about the psychological aspect to it. I went straight to bamboo or bajareke, like all of our walls are made of clay here, and we use bamboo, but or wooden, versus cement, and I mean traditionally what it would be like cement and drywall and
bricks and steel. Yeah, well, in terms of materials, I don't demonize any material because it depends on how you use it, for what you're using it, and where is it coming from, or what's the process behind the materials. So right now there's been an international effort to create a database to make sure that the materials that we are using have a responsible process. And this is a huge effort of many companies and institutions that are promoting sustainability. But really, when you have a material here as a bamboo, you can't tell if it's sustainable or if it's not, because it might come from China.
Sure.
And even though when it comes from China, it actually may have a good, responsible process with their people. So there are things that you need to compare, and it's hard in these days to compare.
Shipped across the world or shipped across giant ocean on.
Yeah, so let's say that we buy a bamboo that is shipped from China.
Which is, why would you do that? Because it's a better they have more streamlined processing, or
so
does that even exist here? Bamboo from China?
Yeah. So for instance, industrialized bamboo,
flat pieces.
Yeah,
processed.
Processed pieces. They
flattened walls.
Yeah,
pieces
exactly. For sure, come from China.
Oh,
because the equipment to make them here is very expensive, requires a lot of investment, and I haven't seen in Costa Rica or in Mexico the proper
process
for doing that.
Yeah.
People have tried, and I know that they're close to having it that here. That will be well, at least in Mexico, that's what I've seen that they are trying. But here we can have this kind of quality of
production.
Yeah, it's not plywood, but what's the name of this?
Yeah, I know, it's flattened bamboo, kind of wall pieces. I don't know.
Yeah, having a deck made out with bamboo is not that easy.
Right.
Yeah. So people will import it because here there's no availability.
I guess you'd call it a composite. Composite? I don't know. Anyway.
Actually, don't know these names in English.
Doesn't matter.
My architectural expertise is in Spanish.
I know.
But yeah, so there are materials that come from China, and And when you see that they have a responsible process, then it's okay. Like you balance it,
Yeah.
right? But there are also other materials that are available here, and that you don't need to go to China to buy these materials, because maybe you can find something here that is produced locally, and it's also responsible with their people, and the way they produce it. They don't pollute the environment, things like that.
Yeah. Well, we used all bamboo. Actually, most of the bamboo we used from the land, but these two we actually got from Bamboo Tico, which I think came from the south somewhere.
Yeah, it's pretty close from here.
Yeah. Okay, so it's not just about it. We've covered it's not just about the materials. It's also about like what do you actually need? Not building maybe bigger than you need. Like what do you actually require for what you want? And then what else? What's the next step?
So there are many things to consider to build a sustainable house or having a regenerative project, and it starts within with these questions, and also that helps you to make the right decisions, and which materials to pick, but also how to orient your house in a way that you're avoiding the sun in the moments of the day that is so intense, right?
This is all permaculture as well. This is where permaculture kind of melts into architecture, is like orientation and why you put specific things and making a site plan and yeah, for sure. Permaculture principles and work, it's super necessary for the architecture as well. Well, for the plan, right? And then for the building per se, there are many things that you need to consider. So one is the orientation, also the quality of materials too. And for instance, if you have the sun in a certain side of your house, maybe you can consider a thicker wall, or some kind of material that don't absorb that heat to then release it into your house. Right.
Cross ventilation. So there are many passive strategies.
Massively important here, cross ventilation.
That you can use, or elevate your building from the side. Things like that, depending on which weather are you in, of course.
Yeah. Well, I used this book, The Barefoot Architect. Have you read this book?
Yes, that's basic. That's.
I read that book. We have a copy of it here, and that's how I designed my house. I just
perfect.
I'm not gonna hire an architect. I just figure it out. And then after living here for so long and living in that, I was able to say, oh well, I need this. I should probably have this or like this. And now living here, I'm like, oh, the sun. It's there's no sun here for the morning, which is kind of nice, but also I miss. So maybe I do it differently next time. You learn each time.
Yeah.
Okay, so wait, but just let's back up maybe a little bit. So you went and studied, and you actually practiced regenerative architecture, or with some firms. You got into LEED certification, and then you went back. And when did you become professor? Professor Luján.
So I became professor in 2017. I think it was in that moment, and a friend of mine invited me to this group that he had. So we were 3 professors, and in this college, the college is called Iberoamericana, La Ibero, we call it. And
Iberoamericana. Iberoamericana.
Yeah. And it was pretty nice. It was a workshop. So we were 3 professors, and every time we had around 30 students per semester. Is not many. And we got this opportunity to collaborate with communities in marginalized communities, or people that have really need to got stuck.
The people who need help, they need support.
Yeah, that's a way of seeing it, but it's people that have deep knowledge in their indigenous roots and the way they do things. But they need support in creating a space or in building something. So with the students, we did like a collaboration
Mm-hmm.
from both, in which both parts learn from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And the students will design something for them in a participatory way.
Mm-hmm.
And the community will give their feedback, see where they wanted the door, or just design with the students, and then we will build together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It was a pretty practical way to teach.
Right.
Yeah.
And you did that first in 2017 and then up until COVID, or what? How? I'm trying to get to where did you meet Ian?
Oh.
When did you meet Ian?
Yeah.
And then what brought you here to Costa Rica?
Yeah. So I met Ian during COVID, but so I was teaching and I was working at the same time
At Ibo American.
in a firm.
Okay.
So yeah, that was like in parallel. And then when COVID happened and we went to back home to work.
Which was where, in Mexico?
Yeah, in Mexico City. We
Vacaciones?
Huh?
It was like vacation or what?
No, like working from home.
Oh, okay. The lockdown.
Yeah, the lockdown, and we started working from home. Mm-hmm. That's why I started to have that distance. I started having that distance from the office, and that's when I met Ian, and so I could go to travels with him and come back, and just my mind started expanding and my possibilities and opportunities.
Right, because sounds like you were kind of like serious. You were like, you had a career, you were teaching, you were like full on in architecture and following your parents' lead, and you had suddenly an opportunity to change.
Yeah, exactly. So I was always questioning a lot of things in relation to architecture. Mm-hmm. Like, why do we build the way we build? Trying to influence students and people to change their ways. But I wasn't in touch with my core, my true self of, wait, why am I even doing architecture? So when COVID happened, and I met Ian and I started traveling, I could compare my lifestyle with others and the freedom also that others had and the authenticity that they were living. And I started questioning myself because, I was pretty serious in my career. So I was like in this rat race. And that was a very good opportunity to just take a pause, take a pause and question everything.
And so where did you go? What did you do?
So we traveled a bunch.
Where did you meet Ian?
I met Ian in Mexico City.
Oh, okay. So
Ian is my partner.
Ian is your partner.
Yeah.
And Ian is like one of my friends. He teaches acro yoga to our local community. He's a very like, he's like I don't know. He kind of has this like free spirit vibe, like very like open, very like loves to like be very close and like just very, I don't know. He's, how to describe Ian? This is good. He's a very like curious and like very like, open-minded human being.
Yeah, he's pretty different from the rest of people that I've ever experienced. That was something that was very attractive to me. And
what was he doing in Mexico City?
He was in sabbatical from his work, and so he had a similar experience of working and having his career. And he was an engineer, and in parallel he was doing acro yoga. So he reached also a point, more or less at the same time that I did. He did first, then I met him. And then I got like that experience too of liberation. So, he was the first time, the first one to decide that he wanted a change in his life.
So maybe he helped inspire you to like do that for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And many other people that was doing it as well in the same.
Yeah, because it was COVID. Everyone's going like, what is this life? Am I wasting my time in this world? Like, what do I want to do with my life? Because time is precious, and who knows? People were dying all over the place. Like, who knows who's gonna live? Who's gonna,
Yeah, it was intense.
Powerful time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and I know you're very like, you're more serious. You have like you're focused and you're kind of driven, and it's good to have maybe some like Ian, that counterpoint. That's like
yeah. Well, he showed me a part of me. Because he's someone that could see through me. So if I was telling him I'm afraid of this and that, he could tell that fear was stopping me for reaching my potential. So that's something that he naturally taps into. And I realized how much I had this roof over me that I created by myself or by my experiences, right? Of like
limitations.
Limitations.
Yeah.
Even from like how much money I was doing in Mexico City, how the kind of projects that I was engaging into. So I let myself dream and just change my life, and now we live in Costa Rica.
I know. How did you get involved in So you guys bought a lot in Alria.
Yeah.
And how did that come about? Like, what brought you here to Costa Rica? What brought you to Alria?
So Ian was he used to come to Costa Rica very often, and he came to a retreat, and when he come back, he said, you need to experience this community. Costa Rica is amazing. I forgot about this. Maybe instead of living in Mexico, because that was our plan, maybe we can live in Costa Rica. And I kind of trusted that, knowing, because he was pretty confident about it. And I always knew that I didn't want to live in the city like for the rest of my life. So I was already planning to move out. And what he brought was very interesting to me. And at the same time, I was in this program of the Regenerative group. This group is in New Mexico, and they offered a program. It's called the Regenerative Practitioners. And I had to have a case of study. So I looked in all about Costa Rica, and I found this project, Alegría Village.
Okay.
And I thought that was perfect for my case of study.
Okay.
And I reached out to Norman. And
Norman Brooks is one of the co-founders of Allegria.
Yeah. And I reached out to him and exposed this to him. I wanted to study this development. What was it about? And that's how I got interested in it.
Cool.
And at the same time, we were planning to design a community that was very similar to this. So we were already working on that.
You and Ian together.
Yeah, together. And some other friends, Clay, and other people. I had like other architects involved, and we created this master plan of a community. But we felt that we weren't ready for it to
take it on and start
to take it on
yourself.
As developers.
Yeah. Developing and architecture are not the same thing. Developing is like massive level project management.
Yeah.
Which requires more than just building and construction. It requires a lot of social.
A lot of logistics.
And logistics, exactly.
And a lot of knowing of political stuff and economical stuff in a bigger level, right? So I was also in a program or a diploma of real estate development. So I was very into that.
A degree.
Yeah, a degree of real estate development, and I was very into that. But I realized I didn't have yet the capacity to take that responsibility, and also things weren't flowing as we wanted. So when we knew about Alegria, we just realized that we could plug in and experience it and understand what actually is working, what actually is not working. And so we can have this information for future real estate projects. And it's been amazing to experience this.
Yeah. I bet. Are you learning a lot?
A lot.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Like, especially now that we are part of this community, like we can't just buy community. It's not about that. And we often are stuck in this transactional paradigm that we can just, we buy a lot in a community, and that's what we're going to get.
That's not community.
And that's not community. No. We need to build community with our daily actions.
Exactly. So. Exactly. I think it's a buzzword people use, community. Like, and it's funny because like even at like Envision every year, they have like this community panel, and I look at it and I'm like, not everyone on there is actually involved in community. They're developers, they're project developers, but project development and community are different. Yeah. And I think it's like they get used what's the word? Like they get used interchangeably, but it's not the same.
It's not the same. Yeah.
You can build a nice place that is proactive for community, that's good, designed for community, but if you don't have people skills and you don't know how to work with people, you can't have community. Community is people. Yeah. It's not houses.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm glad. Thank you for acknowledging that. And I'm hoping, I'm sorry I asked you a lot of questions. I was getting into the architecture stuff because secretly I'm hoping that everybody who's watching this, like, or some of them might be people that are going to build in Alegria or in Ecovia San Mateo that are going to like think, a little deeper about their projects, because I've seen a variety of the projects since from Ecovia. Tacotal is mostly natural, pretty simple natural projects. And then Ecovia, some of them are very big projects, but still a lot of natural building. Alegria, some of them are there's various levels of what I would consider regenerative or sustainability or making choices. Like, why do people make the choices they make? Like, some of the houses, I'm just like, why are you doing this? Like, do you even know what it's like to live here? Like, and I think that for me has been one of the biggest critiques is like, you get all these people that are moving here that have never lived here, have no idea what it's like, and then they build these houses that maybe make sense in wherever they're from. Yeah. In some northern climate, in some northern culture, but like here, we live outside. The whole point of being here is to be outside. And I'm like, why do you build this giant indoor mansion to spend all your time inside your house? Like, that totally defeats the purpose for me of being here. And so I have a little bit of like, I don't know judgment for these people, but I do have a lot of like some critique of what's been happening. So I hope people will come to you for advice or like use this as a.
Thank you. Well, yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to moderate that, and definitely it's a challenge to come to live to another country that it's very different, that has a very different climate, and also integrate in a community with our all the ways of interacting with people. So there are many factors that influence our decisions, and what it's been happening is they want to have a house here, so they build from distance, which makes sense, and I totally understand. Sure. But then even you that you have been living here for a lot of years, and you said I would make things differently. Sure.
Totally.
Just it's everyone is in their own path and trying to find the best way to go, right? And in terms of sustainability and regenerative practices, just goes deep. It's not just something that you can learn from something that you saw in a couple of videos. Like it's really learning how to interact with nature and understanding that we are nature, and kind of like rebuild our narrative or why we are building, and that's something that we're gonna create with time too.
Yeah. And yeah, we're kind of running short on time because we could talk forever about this because it's such a, like you said, it's a huge topic with a lot of aspects. But you just kind of, you're on the board on the design and review committee of Alria. So when people want to build, they send, you have the opportunity to review all their housing plans. And
right now I'm in the design review committee for this year. Next year I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah,
which is a volunteer position. It's an unpaid position. So for a very qualified person like yourself, it's like, it's basically a service project, because you're bringing to this thing a lot of years of knowledge and experience that should be well paid, right? Like, yeah.
Well, it's what it is right now. We are also going like slowly understanding. I feel like we haven't even understand what's our purpose as community, what's our vision. So it's hard to have like structures, pay the structures in this moment, right? But
we're 16 years in as a community, or 17 this year, and we still are figuring that out. I mean, it's never ending, shifting and growing. So
and and also I want to serve now with my architectural services. So instead of being in the DRC, I don't want to have like a conflict of, like of interest. So that's why I'm not also going to pursue it next year.
And you mentioned that. So if people want to get a hold of you to work with you, how can they do that? Do you have a website or Instagram? Or?
I have a website, is regenspirit.com.
Spirit. Regenspirit.com.
Yeah, regenspirit.com. Also, I mean, I have my Instagram is ARQ Daniela Luján, which it's in the name.
We'll put it on there.
Yeah. My Instagram, and if you have my WhatsApp, maybe people from these communities watching, you may have my WhatsApp.
I'll pass it along.
Yeah, you can ask him.
And I know you got more things you're working on. I wish we're kind of out of time on this episode, but like we'll follow up and we'll keep talking about it, because I know there's a whole community architecture. You're kind of working, I know you're like working with like building mass, like you want to streamline, you're working with multiple people. Wasn't this what you were saying? Like working with the whole community to build kind of like a consistency or like efficiently. Am I wrong?
Oh, the collaborative building.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is one initiative that whenever I have several clients building, the idea is to build collaboratively, to be more efficient with resources,
maximize efficiency.
Great. Also we can do that from the design, from the beginning, like from the discovery phase.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can reach out to me and I'll explain everything.
Daniela Luján, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
And for sharing your wisdom. This is La Vida Verde podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Human. We release episodes every Tuesday at noon. You can watch us on YouTube. We also release on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on Instagram at Finca Vida Verde CR. We're on Facebook at Finca Vida Verde. We also have Patreon, where we'll have like little extra clips and like extra things of artists, musicians, talks, where we continue conversations that we have to cut. And it's also a great way to support this podcast. Thank you for supporting us. Patreon.com/La Vida Verde podcast. Thank you to EcoTeas Yerba Mate for keeping me charged. And I think that's it. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Pura vida.